Radio Mano Papachango.
What's up, Chris? What's up, everybody? Nick here in Italy on the Ligurian coast, northwest coast of Italy, sitting in my wife's family's grove of olive trees, watching the sunset. And I've had a few strange days here. I've been working with a gardener, and we work in these really nice villas for people who have second homes here on the coast by the sea, by the Mediterranean, and they come from the cities and spend a few months out of the year living in these big, beautiful homes with pools and views of the sea. And sometimes I watch my boss kind of getting a hard time from these people. They're kind of telling him what to do, like, oh, like, cut this plant, oh, make that one grow better, like, this one's too dry, this one's got too much water, I'll move this plant there. And they're all ornamental plants. You can't eat any of them, and they don't, these folks don't put their hands in the earth, and there's just this kind of strange, like, disconnection from the place I've been noticing, and this like an angst that comes with that. And then I got this audio message from my buddy in Thailand, and he's telling me about his girlfriend's family in Thailand. And when his girlfriend was young, her dad cut down a tree and built their house, and has been growing garlic and carrots and other vegetables to support the family all his life. It's just crazy, these different levels of connection and disconnection. And here I am, just somewhere in the middle. Peace, everybody. Love you.
Thank you, Nick. Somewhere in the middle. Nick out there in the middle. I think we're all somewhere in the middle. In the middle of what is the question? What the fuck are we in the middle of, people? Yeah, it's interesting. What Nick was sort of getting at there, I think, is this yearning that people have for connection with the earth. And but you have to get dirty to have a connection with the earth, because the earth is dirt. Isn't it funny that dirty is bad? Right? Dirty is bad. Dirty mind, dirty thoughts, dirty girl, dirty fingers, dirty fingernails, dirty feet. When dirt is earth, dirt is the planet, dirt is where all life comes from and all life returns to. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, dirt to dirt. Yeah, and yet dirt is bad. I don't know. Very strange species, this Homo sapiens. Very strange moment in the life of this very strange species. I mean, I think about that all the time. Christianity, virgin birth. Really? It has to be a virgin birth? There couldn't have been any fucking going on because fucking is so bad that Jesus could have no connection whatsoever to fucking? His mother has to be a virgin? Oh, please. Also, he's the son of God, so God fucked Mary, or does God have a dick? I don't know. This is all very, very confusing. But dirt, yeah. So people want to have a connection with dirt. They need to have a connection with dirt. They need to put their hands in the fucking ground. They need to bring life from soil, and yet they don't want to get their hands dirty, so they hire someone else to do it, and they treat them like dirt. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, listen, I'm coming to you from just outside Scarlett Johansson. I've got my feet up on her. I'm sitting in a camping chair. I'm at Lake Crescent, which is a little south of Bend, Oregon. Came over here to visit some friends for a couple days, and from here we are headed east toward, we're going to meet some other friends at McCall, Idaho, and then up to Montana. From there we'll be in Whitefish and maybe Bozeman, and see some people up there, and then back down to the Sawtooth Range up around Stanley, Idaho for a few weeks. And then that'll be pretty much the end of our summer van trip this year. And then hoping to go to Spain in late August and spend September and October in Europe. So the road trip will continue, but not in the van at that point. This episode is with a guy named Joe Yannetti, who Roger Nygaard suggested I might want to chat with. Roger, you may remember, is a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, and editor. He was on a couple months ago. He works with Larry David and Sacha Baron Cohen and those guys. Anyway, after we finished recording the podcast, he sent me an email and said, hey, I've got this friend Joe Yannetti. I think you'd really like him. He's a comedian, and he was sort of the genius behind the show, the movie that Roger, I guess, directed and produced and wrote the screenplay together with Joe, about used car salesmen. I forget what the name of the fucking movie was right now. One word name. I'll think of it in a few minutes. I don't have internet. This is weird recording these when I have no internet. I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I can't just like pause and go back and, look at my notes and sound like I don't forget shit all the time, which I do. But anyway, Joe Yannetti, really interesting guy. And it's, when I think of the conversation that I had with him that you're about to hear, the feeling that I get is kindness. That Joe is a really kind, thoughtful, decent guy, which is not, to be honest, is not a set of adjectives that normally comes to mind when I'm thinking of comedians. In my experience, comedians tend to be pretty neurotic, a lot of angst, a lot of conflict going on, and kind of discomfort. And maybe Joe was like that years ago, but he has had a serious health issue that he, had to confront and experience, and he talks about that in our conversation. I don't know if that brought him to a place of kindness and compassion, or if he's always been that way, but that's certainly where he's at now, and he's an awesome guy. I really enjoyed this conversation with him. So I hope you do as well. I am recording this now at the park because I'm going to be in Bend tomorrow when I will upload this. That'll be Saturday, July 4th. It's the 4th of fucking July, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Independence Day. Too bad we're not independent from Exxon and Coca-Cola, Chevron, all these other fucking companies that rule the country. It's not really a country. The whole idea of the nation state is so outdated. More and more, it just seems like the corporations own the world. We just happen to be living on it for the moment. But anyway, happy Independence Day. I hope you're blowing shit up to celebrate the origins of this great nation of ours. And I'm going to play you out with something that's become a bit of a tradition here at Tangentially Speaking. This song is called A Good American Life, and it's by friend of the podcast, Ed Dupas. That's D-U-P-A-S. A Good American Life is the name of the album that this appears on. Really thoughtful. Really thoughtful. And if you're new to the podcast, you probably haven't heard this song before. If you are not new to the podcast, you have heard it, because I've played it, I think, every 4th of July since I first heard it, since Ed sent it to me. Ed, I hope you're still out there listening. I hope your career's going great. I don't know. I wouldn't know if it was or if it weren't, but I hope it is. This is an amazing song, and my other favorite song by Ed is called Flag. I always sort of have a conundrum which one to play. They have very similar messages, really looking a little more deeply at the American dream and what it really means to people in reality. And as George Carlin said, you have to be dreaming to believe this bullshit. Yeah, anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope that your 4th of July weekend or week is treating you right, and that there aren't as many flies landing on you as there are on me right now. I'm going to wrap this up and let you listen to this song by Ed Dupas, A Good American Life. Make sure you listen to the lyrics, and then I hope you enjoy this conversation with Joe Yannetti. All right, everybody, thank you for your attention and your time and your good feelings. And if you want to support the podcast, you know how to do it. I'm not going to nag you about it. I appreciate everything you do, any way you do it. And I will catch you again soon. Ciao.
I wake up in the morning, the alarm clock tells me when. Pour a cup of coffee and hit the road again. Find the nearest freeway, yeah, I got places to be. That sounds like a good American life to me. And I'm heading to the office or the job site or the mill. Time to make some money, yeah, time to pay some bills. They're charging me for things that I used to get for free. That sounds like a good American life to me. That sounds like a good American life to me. Just trying to catch my breath so I can tell myself I'm free. Feels like I'm running in circles. Guess I'll wait and see. That sounds like a good American life to me. Now we got ships in the Gulf. Yeah, we got them in Japan. Got boots on the ground in Germany and Afghanistan. And they got families and loved ones and kids they ain't never seen. That sounds like a good American life to me. That sounds like a good American life to me. Just trying to catch my breath so I can tell myself I'm free. Feels like I'm running in circles. Guess I'll wait and see. That sounds like a good American life to me. And I keep waiting on a whistle when everyone will stop, but they keep right on telling us there's room up at the top. So I'm getting up tomorrow, guess that's how it's gonna be. That sounds like a good American life to me. That sounds like a good American life to me. That sounds like a good American life to me. That sounds like a good American life to me.
All right, here we are. Joe Yannetti, thank you for taking the time to chat today, man.
Hello, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so your buddy, our buddy, Roger Nygaard.
Yes.
After the last time I talked to him, he said, "You should really talk to my friend Joe. He's really interesting." And that we were talking about Suckers, and I guess I don't know. Did you write the screenplay, or it was based on your experience, or what? What was your connection?
Yeah, we wrote it together. I originally wrote it as a one-man show that I was going to do myself, and of course I sent it to Roger to read it and give me his thoughts. And his thoughts were, I can turn this into a screenplay and we can make a great movie.
Wow,
So,
like
it was a big con
better
job.
answer than you were hoping for, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
could
it
you
was-
take
it
a
was-
look at this?
yeah, and they tore it
Yeah,
apart.
I can make a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, he's,
Well, that's
he's
great.
like a workaholic. So for him to take a whole script and take out all the parts that can't be in a screenplay and put all the parts in, and it would have taken me 4 years. It took him about 4 hours.
Yeah. He's funny. He's one of those guys who's like highly productive, but he seems relaxed.
Yeah,
I don't know how he does it.
yeah, I don't either. It really aggravates me. If I could do half of what he does, I'd be rich.
He must just be a lot smarter than us normal guys. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we were talking, and he's like, then I, edited the, Borat movie, and then I was editing Curb Your Enthusiasm, and then I'm making these movies, and then I, I'm writing a book too. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
fuck you,
yeah.
dude. Come on, you're
Yeah.
writing a book too.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to write a book when I
Another book.
retire.
Yeah, exactly. So what was when you were thinking about it as a one-man show, it was based on your experience as
Yeah.
a used car salesman? Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. It was actually new cars, mostly new cars, because there was
new
too much
cars.
hassle when you sell a used car. There's more money, but there was too much hassle. So I like selling the new cars, because if something went wrong with the car, it was under warranty. They didn't get mad at me. We fixed it for free. But my first wife and I decided to have a baby, and I didn't want to miss anything. I actually bought her a book while I was on the road. I'm a stand-up comedian, and while I was on the road, I bought her a book about all the changes her body would go through. And before I got home, I read the book, and I was, man, I don't want to miss this. This is going to be really cool. It's amazing what a woman's body will do to accommodate a baby while it's growing. And to me, it was just this great experiment. Not an experiment. I mean, obviously everybody's done it, but it was just, I didn't want to miss any of it. So
Yeah.
I was actually buying a car, and the salesman was just an idiot. And I was like, man, if they hired this guy, I could probably get a job here. And I went and applied, and I would call Roger and tell him all the ridiculous things that were happening. And of course, he was like, write it down. You got to write everything down. And, you know, I would tell him stories. And of course, and you got to be careful when you talk to Roger, because he writes down everything you say, too. So, you know, he's ridiculous. He documents everything. So, and it was really traumatic for me, because I went in and got the job, and I said, look, I got to go and do a gig in New Jersey for a couple of weeks. And he said, okay, when you get back, you can start. So I was working in a major casino in a big show. There was me and magicians and dancers and singers. And I went from that showroom to a Jeep showroom in Southern California. And the magician I worked with, he didn't speak at all. And he played this classical piece of music in his act. And when I went to work at the car dealership, the Muzak, that song came on. and I just started crying, because I was like, how did this happen? You know, I was doing television. I was working in major places. I was working all over the country, and, you know, and it was more my decision to stop and stay home. But it was still pretty traumatic, because I was and that was what the one-man show was. Like, how did this happen?
Okay. So, like, did you see this as like a shift from your stand-up comedy career into something else, or was this just something you were going to do while your wife was pregnant?
Yeah, it was just going to be temporary. Well, it was temporary. The one thing that all car salesmen have in common is they're all trying to get out of the business. There's like, I don't think there's anyone selling cars who wishes they were doing something else. It's very lucrative, but it's kind of it's a hard world to live in, because I don't want to sound insensitive, but if someone came in and I was totally honest with them, they just wouldn't buy the car, because they wouldn't believe you. I have done this. I have had people, and I say, look, I like you. I'm going to do this for you. This is what would happen. This is what's going to happen. And when my boss comes in, you say this. And they'll go, this is a scam, and they leave.
Really?
So you actually have to start out really high and let them think they're accomplishing something by getting to a fair price. And they think they beat you up, and they took advantage of you, and they didn't. You know, that's so many people, when they buy cars, I got this guy, he was so upset. And I'm like, okay, did they let you leave with the car? Yeah, well, they made money.
Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, it's their decision.
Yeah.
It's a world I know very little about, because even though I'm an American man, I'm not a car guy.
Yeah. I'm not either, really.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a friend who's an auto mechanic, and he's not a car guy. He's like, I don't know. It's just what I do. I don't give a shit. I don't like cars, you know?
Yeah.
I bought a car. The first car I ever bought was about 10 years ago. So I was 49. And I'll tell you how, you'll laugh at this probably. I thought I was going to, like, you know, play the angles like everyone else, I guess. And I knew what car I wanted. And I knew roughly how much they cost. I'd done some research. And I went to the dealership, this was in Southern California, that had this car, you know, is a certified used, so it had the warranties and all that shit.
Yeah.
And I went with $20,000 cash in my pocket, thinking that was going to be my leverage, not knowing they don't want your fucking cash. They want you to finance, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. So I pull out this like envelope of $20 cash, and the guy looks at me like, "What are you, a drug dealer? Like, I got to file government reports and stuff now. Like, this is all." Yeah. And they got me. I mean, I got them, I think, initially because I said the price, and the guy's like, "I can't do that. My boss will fire me," and all that bullshit. And then I said, "Okay, well, then fine," and I left. And I was, you know, like 3 miles away when he called me, and he's like, "Hey, if you come back, I think I can do it." You know, so it went that far. Yeah. But then But then I'm in the process where I'm in the office with this really pretty woman, and she's like doing the writing up
finance
stuff, and
director.
she's like, "So, do you want?" Right.
Yeah.
So she's like, "So do you want the total warranty?" And I was like, "Well, I've got it's certified, right?" She's like, "Oh yeah, but then there's this warranty." And I said, "Well, what's it cover?" And as I say that, this guy is walking by, and she says, "Hey, Bobby, come back here." Bobby here's the head of maintenance and all that. Like, what does this thing cover? As if he just happened to be walking by at that, right?
Yeah.
Later, I was like, wait, that was all a setup, you know? The hot woman, the dude walking by at exactly the right moment. So they
The F&I, the finance and insurance people, they have such an advantage because after you decide you want the car, you think the negotiating is over. And all your defenses come down, and the women that I worked with that were in finance, man, they were always gorgeous, and they had such an advantage, and they just got all the advertisement all over the walls, and you're like, hey, what is that? What is this? How much is it? Look that over while I'm doing this. Right. And then it's like, oh, it's just $25 a month. And then you go home and you're like, wait a minute, I just paid $3,000 more.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
and they don't seem like they're selling you anything. But where you really get it is in the service department. That's Roger and I have toyed around with doing a sequel about the service department because they're upselling you everything.
Right.
And they're worse than the car salesman.
Right. And their prices are inflated as well, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
everything costs more from a dealership.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How long did you do that?
I sold cars off and on, once when my wife was pregnant, and then I went back again. I stopped. I was on the road for a while, and then we made the movie. And then we had a deal with HBO to make a series based on the film. And by then I was divorced. And I went back to LA and went and sold cars again. And kind of so I could stay there to work the deal, but a lot just to get more stories and more stuff to write about. And I sold cars in many different places. Like at one point I was selling cars at Gardena Nissan, which is right on the line of South Central LA. And while I was working there one day, I was the only white guy in the dealership as O.J. Simpson went. The highway was, he literally drove right over the dealership and the helicopters and the car. And I'm like, oh, please let him get away while I'm here. Because I was like right there, man, like right where all that stuff happened after. Like the Rodney King stuff and then right. OJ and I was right where all that stuff had happened when he went over. I'm not exaggerating, like right over my head. So and then I worked the complete opposite of that was selling Toyotas in Santa Monica, where a guy would come in and he's like, I want to buy this for my daughter, and I'm like, oh, bring her down and have her drive it. And he's like, well, she doesn't have her license yet. And I'm like, that's a $55,000 truck. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get it for her. I might go get the Lexus because it has the electric mirrors and I don't want her to ruin my garage. And I'm like, man, one time a buddy of mine told me this. I wasn't working there at the time, but Jeff Bridges came in to look at a car that he was selling. I think he was selling Corvettes or something. And Jeff Bridges made him drive the car all the way to his house and put it in his driveway so he could go up into his bedroom and look down on the driveway to see how the car looked in his driveway. And then he didn't buy it.
Wow. That's amazing.
So there was all kinds of, different situations.
So I don't want to like bang this drum. I know, your career is far more interesting, all different things you've been doing, the stand-up and the acting and all this other stuff. But just while I have an expert here, I got to pick your brain a little bit more.
Sure.
What's the right way to buy a car?
The absolute right way to buy a car is to do all your research. Like, do all the research, go to a credit union if you have one already. If you don't, join a credit union. And you can just go there and say, if I bought this car, with my credit, have them check your credit and then whatever you're going to put down, and they'll see what you qualify for, and they'll give you a great interest rate. And then like you could say, they'll say, okay, you qualify for a car up to $25,000. We'll finance you for this long. Your payments will be, $350 a month. And so when you go to the car dealership, when they show you that same car for that price, and they go, and your payments are only $475, then you know that they're lying. Well, they'll come back and say, well, that's only if you finance it for 2 years, like, which no one's going to do, right? So, they'll figure out a way to make it look like they're not doing that to you, but they are. And you do all the research about which car you want, and also understand that you're the one with the control. I have friends that are literally terrified to go into a car dealership to buy a car. And I'm like, they can't force you to write a check. You're the one with all the control. If you don't want to buy a car, you say, I'm comparing these 3 cars, and go drive them. And sometimes even go rent the type of car you think you want to drive or you want to buy, and drive the car for a week and see how it feels and get used to it a little more than that. But then you call the car dealership and you make an appointment, get the sales manager on the phone and say, I want this car. I've done all the research. I want to talk to a guy that's not going to, give me a hassle. And you walk in, you say to the guy, I think I want this car. I want this color. And I know what it costs. I already have my financing. And if I was the salesman, I look at that and go, okay, I can grind this guy for 3 hours, or I can make the same amount of money in 20 minutes. So, a smart salesman would understand that this person coming in knows more about the car than I do. They know what they want. They know what they can get for financing, and they know what their credit is, because sometimes you can convince someone they have bad credit when they don't, and that puts them on the defensive and convinces them that they have to go with the higher rate, and then the dealership makes money off the rate. So the main thing is research. Do all the research and find, and sometimes you can go to a credit union and the dealership will beat their interest rate. Sometimes they have all kinds of special deals. If you're buying a car that's a leftover from the year before. So as long as you know where you should be, they can't really fool you on too many things.
Is it true that it's best to buy a car at the end of the year because they're trying to move out that year's model?
Well, some people just want the newest, latest version, so you buy that as soon as they come out. But the new cars, they don't come out right at the end of the year. So if they still have the car that you want and you're willing to have, the year before. Because when you go to sell that car, that the resale value, obviously, if it's a 2-year-old car or a 3-year-old car. But if it doesn't matter to you, go in either at the end of the year or when the new models come out. But if you can actually wait until like 2021 to buy a 2020, they really, you take a chance that they might not have any left. But you do get an amazing deal. They'll give you great interest rates. They'll give you rebates. They want to get rid of those.
Right. So how did you meet Roger?
Also, at the end of the month, because a car dealership's inventory depends on how many cars they've sold. So when you go to the end of the month, number one, they might have incentives for the salesman, and those incentives give him an incentive to sell the car. If he sells a certain amount of cars in a month, or there's a particular car that has a bonus on it. So right at the end, like the last day of the month, and go in right before they close. Because then they're like,
the guy wants to go home.
Well, he wants to go home. Everybody wants to go home. They'll all be yelling at each other. You have the advantage to get them to fight with each other. They'll be nicer to you. And then, you know, the guy might need one more car to make his bonus or something, you know?
Right. That's good advice.
Yeah.
So did you meet Roger through showbiz, or did you guys? Yeah,
Roger worked for a guy named Buddy Mora, and I met these guys. They came to I'm from Boston. They came to Boston scouting locations and then comedians for HBO special. And they didn't like me for that particular thing. Stephen Wright was hosting it, and he wanted one of his best friends to be the new guy. So my friend Barry Crimmins got that, deservedly so also. But they liked what I did, and we hung out one night, and then when I went to LA, they started helping me out, and I met Roger through them. And one time I was just at a comedy club and doing a show, and he was with Buddy, and we started hanging out. And actually, Buddy's wife had this class. It was called like acting, writing, pat on the back, direct. No matter what you did, like if you wrote a script and you wanted actors to act it out, you would give them your script and they would act out the script, and then you would sit down and the class would critique your writing. If you were a director, you would direct a scene. If you were an actor, you would ask to act in something, and you weren't allowed to say anything until everybody was done critiquing what they thought of your work. It was a really cool class. It was really fun. And they asked me, this guy wrote a script about a comedian who was a really bad comedian who was on stage, and there was someone in the audience that as soon as he got off stage, he was going to kill him. So he had to just keep going, and it was really bad jokes. And the guy tells this horrible story about the on stage. He tells this story about this girl that he had sex with, and she was bleeding all over his car, and it was this disgusting scene. And I found out later the guy who wrote the script was a priest. And then the hardest thing was, you do stand up. Did I see that you're a comedian also? No. It's really.
I hang out. I have a lot of friends who are comedians. Oh, okay. So I kind of know the world a little bit.
It's really hard to forget your timing. So this guy had purposely written in jokes that he thought were really bad. But when you do a bad joke with really good timing, it makes the joke a lot better. But so I would do this joke, I would do it well, and it would get a laugh, but it's not supposed to. Like, there's actually lines in the script saying, "I know you're not laughing at this," which made the audience laugh even harder. Right. So it went well, but it was a really interesting situation trying to do a joke badly. It's really hard to do it badly when you've worked so hard to do jokes the right way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting position to be in as an actor, trying to be bad at something you've worked hard to be good at.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ultimate acting gig, right? It's
yeah. It's like a
really good dancer trying to dance badly. Like, that must be hard.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was watching something the other day, and I can't remember what it was, but it was an amazing actress, and she was supposed to be doing a scene badly. You know, she was an actress playing someone who wanted to be an actress, and I was like, that must be so hard for her to do, and she did it perfectly. Like, it looked horrible, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah. It's like an Australian playing a bad American actor trying and failing to do an Australian accent. Like, wow, how do you do that? You know,
it's funny that you say that, because in the movie Suckers, the guy who plays me, he plays Bobby in the movie. He came in and he was an Italian from Boston, man. He had an accent. He was an American, and then he showed up on the set and he was from Australia. He had such a
Really?
thick Australian accent. Yeah, it's Louis Mandylor. He's actually Costas Mandylor's brother. Costas he had a big show he was on Picket Fences. You remember that show?
Yeah, I never watched it, but
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, he was pretty famous for a while.
You ever watch The Wire?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Okay.
That
So
was
you know,
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Baltimore is
So
such a cool accent.
McNulty, right? The star.
Yeah.
Is British.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
actor. Right?
Yeah. I was so shocked to hear that.
Isn't that great? Because his American accent's so good.
Yeah.
But there's a scene, and I just watched it the other day on YouTube. There's a scene where McNulty, the character, is sitting around with the other detectives, and they're joking, and he's going to go undercover in like a vice operation or something, and he's going to pretend to be a British businessman. So he does a bad British accent, and, with these American. So he is literally in that position where he's doing a bad British accent as a British actor playing an American guy. It's fucking hilarious. Yeah,
It drives me nuts when you're watching people do a Boston accent, and they'll say something like, my car is in a parking spot. And it's like, no, you can't. There's no R's.
Packing.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll do it with one word and then not with another. That drives me nuts.
Well, you mentioned the Baltimore accent. I read recently that Baltimore Philadelphia kind of accent is the hardest one for actors to do. That's the one they're scared of trying to pull off.
Yeah, they say things like yuns.
Yeah.
Instead of you.
Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania. We said yins as a kid.
Yeah. My brother one time.
I can't do the accent.
My brother was he was ordering some parts for his car, and he goes and he's talking to the parts store, and he goes, "Do you guys carry, a head gasket for a 440 whatever?" And he hangs up the phone. I go, "Ed, that sounds terrible." He goes, "What?" I go, "You just said, do you guys sell a head gasket for..." He goes, "I did not. I said, do you guys carry..."
Right over his head. Yeah. So what came first for you? Were you doing was that your original thing, stand up in Boston, and then you sort of moved into acting and writing, or how'd that work?
I started in Boston in 1983. I was 20 years old, and some people had convinced me that college wouldn't be a smart thing to do. I still can't believe I fell for that. And then I walked into a comedy club, and my first thought was, wow, I could do this for free. Like, I could learn how to do this without having to pay for it. And my second thought was, man, they love that guy up there. I want to be that guy. So I went back the next week, and I did stand up in Boston for 4 years. Boston was the best place in the world to become a comedian. The support here and the scene here, there was so much work, and it was amazing. And then I went to New York for a little while. New York. I've been back in New England for too long. I went there for a little while, and then I went out to L.A. with the guy that Roger worked for, just to visit and see what it was like out there. And I decided, man, no matter how big I get in New York, I would have to start over in L.A. again. So I just moved to L.A. Excuse me. And then, I started working on the road, traveling around the country, which, I grew up in the inner city of Boston. I had never done anything until I became a comedian. So it was a gigantic thrill for me to start traveling around, and I'm sorry. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was making more than anyone I knew that was doing something they loved so much, except for the other comedians. The people I grew up with were, I grew up with all carpenters and plumbers and electricians and hoodlums and thieves and gangsters, you know. So, and I should have stayed in L.A. and, you know, learned that scene, but I loved doing stand-up so much, and I wanted to be really good at it, and I knew that I had to do it to get better. So I just kept traveling around, and when I came back to Los Angeles and would do auditions, I would do really well, but for some reason they were just like, "You're a great comedian. I wish there was something I could do to help you." And then they would choose someone that didn't make the audience laugh, and I didn't understand why they were picking that person, you know. And it took me a while to understand, like, all right, they see something that they can make money with, and they don't see that with my style of comedy or whatever. And then, you know, my wife wanted to move back, and then she wanted to live without me, so we got divorced. And then I went back to L.A. I got divorced from my first wife. I met my second wife, and she came out to L.A. with me and tried to kill me. But she's actually in Suckers. She's in the movie, just, you know, like an extra kind of thing. But, and then I came back home again, and then I got divorced from her. Then I started traveling around the world on cruise ships. And I just...
Doing stand-up.
Yeah. And I remember one time I left my house. I had to go to Japan. And I stopped in Germany. I went to Japan. I got on a ship, sailed to Russia, and then to Seattle. And, Vancouver. And then flew home. And I didn't realize it until I landed in Boston that I had just gone all the way around the world. And I was like, man, that's really cool, you know. Yeah. And, you know, I've lived on ships in Hawaii, which is like my favorite place. So I've had a lot of fun, and you know, a lot of trouble, a lot of heartache. And, you know, we made Suckers, and then we had a deal with HBO, but the producers kind of blew it, you know. That was really hard. Actually, the hardest thing ever was I was booked on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, his last month that he was on, and I got bumped off the show by Bill Cosby. That sucked.
Fuck.
I'm still not over that.
Yeah.
Like that, because The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson was like putting a stamp on your forehead, like, now you're a comedian. Yeah. So, but along the way, and now I have a third wife, and she's just the greatest lady in the world. She got me through a lot, real serious stuff. Like, I had stage 4 throat cancer, and we weren't even dating that long, and she stuck with me through that whole thing. And it's disgusting. And when I tell you it's disgusting, it's really disgusting, the things that your body does when you go in having radiation and chemotherapy. And she's an amazing woman. So
congratulations, man.
Thanks, man.
That's the top of the mountain right there. You know,
yeah.
Have someone who'll stick with you no matter what. That's I know being on Johnny Carson is a big deal, but this is a bigger deal.
Oh yeah, I'm alive. Yeah. I'm alive, man. Yeah. That was
you're alive, and you're loved. You know, I mean,
and Roger's the expert on marriage now.
Yeah.
He asked me, he goes, "How many times you going to get married?" I said, "Just one more after this one."
No, I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable place, but you said
never.
Your second wife tried to kill you. Did you mean that literally, or just drive you crazy, kill you?
It's not like she tried to shoot me or stab me. But she would have killed me if she could have, you know, if I didn't get away when I did. She was never, like, formally diagnosed with it, but I'm pretty sure she had borderline personality disorder. And that's just the worst torture in the world, you know. They figure out exactly what you want them to be and become everything you ever wanted. And then you fall in love and they turn into everything you ever were afraid of, or she just she drove me insane. I taught her how to do stand up, and I don't know if you use vulgarity on your show here.
Fuck yeah.
So my friend Bobby Kelly, he's a pretty popular comedian right now. He was our best man, and I said, I'm going to teach her how to do stand-up. And he instantly said, "You fucking deserve everything you get."
So he could see it
and
coming?
he was right. He was right. We were doing it together, and I'm still convinced we would have been very famous and very rich if she wasn't just so crazy. She was absolutely gorgeous and hilarious, but she just couldn't be happy. It's really sad. I feel bad for her. She just refuses to accept any kind of joy in her life, and we would have had everything. But I'll write a screenplay about that someday.
Yeah, I was wondering. While you were talking, I was thinking, there's the elements of beauty and hope and triumph and despair, and I mean you got all the elements of a good story there.
Yeah, well, we were at an open mic night one night in Boston, just hanging out with some friends, and she didn't even know. I just told my buddy to introduce her, and I just wanted to see. She'd never been on stage like that before. Wow. And it was terrible, just because it's someone's first time and they weren't expecting it, and she's holding her hands up, blocking the lights. But the audience was so enthralled. I'm looking at the crowd and I'm like, they can't take their eyes off her. And it wasn't because she was an attractive woman. It was that they wanted to know what she had to say. And we used to do, like, I would have her open for me, and she would go on stage and talk about this, Italian guy that she was married to who was, an asshole. And then I'd go up on stage after her and talk about this woman I was married to who's insane and drives me nuts. And I would get the audience to heckle me and say something rude about her. And I would say, "Well, do you want to meet her? She's here tonight." And I would say, "Honey, come up here." And as she's walking to the stage, the whole crowd is thinking, "Oh my God, everything she said was about him and everything he said was about her." And you see the gears turning, and then she'd come up on stage and the audience would actually divide itself. And some people would be on her side and some people would be on my side. And man, it was something really special. But she just, I got her on ships with me, and she got me fired off a ship. And man, that really messed with me. But that was it. We had broken up before. We were getting divorced. In Massachusetts, there's a waiting period. We called off the divorce with a few days left in the waiting period. Then we got back together, renewed our vows, then broke up again for, a year, get back together. It was, I owed money to the IRS, and the IRS agent said to me, why haven't you paid your taxes? And I said, because I've been living in hell for 10 years with an insane woman. And the guy goes, "All right, I'm going to give you your money back." I was like, "What?" He was like, "Okay, just, do this, and this, and you'll be all set." And I'm like, "Just say thank you and leave." There's this guy screaming in my head, "Say thank you and leave." And I go, "Thank you very much," and I leave. And as I'm walking to my car, I'm happy, I'm out of trouble now. And then I think, how much have I fucked up my life that the IRS is leaving me alone?
They feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Tax collector.
Yeah. They're like, "Yeah, I understand, Bran."
Well, that's such an honest answer too.
Yeah.
It's like, and the dude probably had something in his background where he's like, "Okay, I know exactly what you're saying here." Yeah. But it's interesting that you guys used your the conflicts in your relationship you wrote that into your stand-up act. I mean, it was almost like a performance art piece of a couple in conflict, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you took that conflict and extended it out into the room and got the audience involved in it.
Oh, yeah.
That was a pretty ballsy thing to do. I wonder, did that delay the disintegration of your relationship or accelerate
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I knew, like I had lived in New York and LA. I knew basically when I was just doing it by myself, it took me a long time to learn what the game was in Los Angeles.
Right.
And then when I learned what the game was, I decided I didn't want to play that game. I thought if I go up on stage and make the audience laugh, I'll gain opportunities. And that's not really how it works, It's not, what's the word? Meritocracy. It's like who's friends with who and who you hung out with and how you got to know, and people like who went to college together, and one guy's an actor and one guy's a director, and the director puts the actor in a movie, and so I didn't have any of that, and I was always alone, working alone. But then when I met her and saw the dynamic that we had together, I knew that I didn't have to go to LA and spend years there, and I didn't have to develop 2 hours of material, and I knew I needed maybe 12 minutes, and I got her to come on ships with me. And man, because of the ships I was working, it was exactly the demographic I needed. And it was the only place where I would have 500 people in an audience in a packed room watching me develop an act with this woman. And to me, it was like this gift from God. Like, here is the perfect situation to develop this. And she just wouldn't let it be, She just had to figure out a way to fight over how horrible. Like, she'd argue with me, why do we have to live in New Hampshire? And I'm like, look out the window. That's Maui. We're in Maui. It's like when we go home to New Hampshire, we stay for 2 weeks and come back here. So It was, and I had a great agent at the time that was so in with this cruise line. I could say, I want to stay on the ship for 3 months. I want to go home for 2 weeks and come back. Okay. And we'd go scuba diving. I had her get certified. I was already diving all the time. We're in Hawaii. I got bicycles on the ship. We got, and if you know the cruise industry, there's nothing better. You're in the United States. Your phone works all the time. You're not in foreign countries. You don't have to go through customs and immigration all the time. And man, I would have put my lifestyle up against anybody, no matter how rich and famous you were. I was living in Hawaii. I was doing everything I love to do. I was madly in love with this woman, and we were developing something really special. And it just went away.
Yeah. Did you ever consider trying to revive the act with another woman?
No! No. Oh, you're making me dizzy just thinking about it. I could do stuff. I could do stuff with my wife. Like, we'll do stuff on YouTube and just make silly videos and post them on social media. But it's so difficult because show business, the pressure and everything. And now I've learned actually from working cruise ships, because on a cruise ship you do a show and you're famous. It's a little tiny world, but you're famous in that world. And I can't even imagine what it would be like if my life was like that everywhere I went. Right. That would suck, you know. And
everyone
people
who sees you wants to talk to you, and
they think they own you.
Yeah.
They think, and I would never be able to have a conversation in a restaurant with my wife. I have friends that are really famous, and they tell me things that are. It's like, no, I don't want to live like that. I'm sure there's a lot of advantages to it. Actually, the only thing that I wish I had, which is just sounds really weird, I know, like healthcare, you know, like if I had a relative or myself or, you know, God forbid, if my wife got sick and needed something that I couldn't afford, that's when I feel like, man, I probably should have stuck with trying to be rich. But there's a, I don't remember if it's Chinese, but there's this saying that if you want to know what's important to you, look at what you have. And I know that the most important thing to me is free time. Like, I love being able to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. And I
agree,
really
bro.
don't care about being rich or famous.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and,
I mean, I probably wouldn't turn it down.
Well, but you've been around it enough to know that it's not free, you know?
Right.
You don't just add money.
That's
to
a great
your
way to
life.
put it.
You add the money, but you got to take away something else, whether it's free time or self-respect or your health or your relationship. You know, that it's always a give and a take. So yeah, I have friends who are wealthy, and I've been around enough wealth to see, like, I've never envied anyone, their wealth, their beauty, their fame, whatever, because everything comes at a price, you know?
Yeah, I have relatives that are ultra wealthy, and then they you know, they can't sleep at night. It's like, what do you worry about? You know, it's like, what are you worried about that you couldn't handle? Just, you know, I can't imagine, and I know they have certain problems and stuff, but I also look at them and go, man, me and my wife enjoy ourselves so much more. You know, making do. You know, you might have a boat that's worth $2 million, and you know, my boat's worth $2,000, but I use mine every day. You know, and I have a blast, and I go out. I live on a lake in New Hampshire. You know, go out and watch the sunset and jump in the water with my wife and get drunk. You know, and we just have a blast. We really do. I finally found the greatest woman in the world, man.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for you. That's great.
Yeah, and she's got an Italian last name, and she was born in Ireland.
Sounds Catholic.
Yes, very.
Yeah. Listen, dude, I really enjoyed just hanging out with you here for a few minutes. I know we barely scratched the surface, but you're a really nice guy. I'd like to.
Thanks, man.
If I'm ever on the East Coast, I hope we could like hang out.
Well, now my thing right now, I'm trying to build a comedy club here in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire. Yeah, right on the line in Massachusetts. So I got the greatest location. I got the biggest name. It's going to be an improv, and I got all the pieces except the money. Now I got to go find the money. So I got to find some investors, and so if there's anybody out there.
Wants to invest in a comedy club.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've definitely got the contact. You know that world really well.
Yeah. And I just want, I really just want to stay home now.
Yeah.
Right. I want something. I want a little piece of the world for myself.
Right. Yeah. You know, I used to travel a lot when I was younger, backpacked all around the world. Sometimes. Yeah, that was my thing. I mean, you did it on the cruise ships. I was just with a backpack, you know, in India and Nepal and all over the place. And sometimes I'd meet people older than me, you know, in their 40s or 50s or whatever, and they had like a guest house or a little cafe or something. And, you know, invariably they were people who traveled when they were young, and then they got to a point where they're like, I don't want to travel anymore, but I still want to hang out with travelers.
Yeah.
You know? So pick a spot, make a beautiful place, and then those people will come to me. You know?
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I love being in places. I just hate getting there. You know, it's so ridiculous now, you know?
Yeah.
But so many people, like, what about you? You're saving for your retirement. And it's like, you're saving your retirement so you can do what I do every day. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, what am I going to save my money so I can travel? They pay me to travel.
Right.
And I spend all my money in all these places, you know, and it's, you know, I started hiking, and just the things that you see are just, it's just amazing. And the people that you meet, and you're like, we're all the same, man. Everybody's the same, no matter what color you are or what kind of accent you have. And, you know, everybody loves their children, and it's really, it's such a wonderful experience. Like, my daughter drives me nuts. My daughter, every time she has a vacation, she goes to Disney World. It's like, go somewhere real.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any particular insight that you gained from the experience with cancer?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Stage 4, that's like, it's amazing you're alive, right?
You know what? This is years after I'm cancer-free, and the type of cancer I had, I'm not in remission. I'm cured. It's gone. It won't come back. And I said I want to write a book about it, and I said to my nurse, the nurse that helped me through it the most, I said, how bad was I? And she goes, aside from death, worst case scenario. I go, really? But it was only stage 4. And she goes, what do you mean? I go, well, stage 5 is the worst, right? And she goes, there's no stage 5. I go, what? And like, all this time I was thinking, hey, it's not the worst it could be. I'll be fine. She tells me there's no stage 5. But what I mean this totally honestly. I mean, obviously, physically it was the worst year of my life, but in every other way it was the best year of my life. The outpouring of love and support, and, you know, from my family, my brother, who just recently passed away, he died of cancer in January. He actually died on January 6th, so I'll never forget the date that he died. But he came and lived with me, and I mean, my oncologist got right in my face, and he was like, your brother saved your life. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your brother. And between my brother and the woman I'm married to now, my mother, my sister, and all my friends, the comedy community instantly came together to do fundraisers for me. And nurses who were total strangers, like someone you've never met before, helping you like to vomit, and while you're vomiting, you're thinking, why is this stranger being so kind to me and doing these things? So you learn so much about human nature and how much love there is in the world, and support, and you also learn so much about like, I didn't know this until years later. One of the nurses, her sister was being treated at the same time I was, and no one knew that it was her sister, and her sister didn't make it. So that nurse, like, they can only last a certain amount of time in that field because the heartache is just, it overwhelms them. So I've never felt more love in my life. Just the love, the support, just people praying for me, people posting things on social media, and so I try to pay that forward. You know, I have a lot of friends that actually had the same kind of cancer, throat cancer caused by HPV, and I just found a lot of love. To just sum it up in one word.
Yeah. Man, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Where can people find out more about you and watch you?
My website is just yannetti.com. YANNETTY. Make sure you don't put any I's in there. They're supposed to be I's. When my grandfather came from Italy, they messed up my name, but everyone, even when I spell it out, and I'll say YANNETTY, and they'll write an I at the end. So it's just yannetti.com is my website. And then I'm on social media everywhere. It's just Joe Yannetti at everything. You know, Joe Yannetti on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Right.
So
good. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, Mom, tell people what they can order from the garage.
Okay, in our cottage garage, we have lots and lots of T-shirts. Sex at Dawn, Civilized to Death, anthropology, tangentially speaking, paleo-modern, and talking out of my ass.
She didn't like saying that last one.
Then we now have some new things added. We've got beer cozies, or koozies, or whatever they're called.
Oh, civilized to death design.
They're all civilized
That's right.
to death.
We have stickers and car decals, right?
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. That's Julie, my mom.
He said, baby, what's a big deal? Feel what you wanna feel. Say what you wanna say. You're gonna die one day. For example, I could kiss you just because I want to. What's the difference if you turn away? I'm gonna die one day. Why do you waste your time thinking about your reputation? Trying to meet an expectation, wondering what they're gonna say. When everyone you've ever known is headed for a headstone. I don't wanna give the end away, but we're gonna die one day. Your body is an animal, doesn't ask for much. A little music and a soft touch. Why don't you let it out to play? Your heart is in a birdcage, singing in your chest. You wanna shut it up but give it a rest. You're gonna die one day. Why do we waste our time thinking about a reputation? Running from a confrontation, wondering what we ought to say. When everyone we've ever known is headed for a headstone. I don't want to give the end away, but we're gonna die one day. We're gonna die one day. We're gonna die one day. So baby, what's a big deal? If you wanna be free, say what you wanna feel. Spend the night with me. I'm gonna take you up in my arms. And if we must go down, we'll go singing to the smoke alarms. We'll dance into the ground.